Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being the show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Preacher. A very good episode with some interesting developments. In this episode, we kind of got a little more of a peek at, what hell looks like and how it operates to a slight degree, as we kind of get to see what hell is like for Eugene. Basically, we saw how the whole situation between him and Tracy went down, and went down a lot differently than it ended up. Everyone in Anvil thought it did, because it's like, basically she rejected him, so he turned a gun on her, and he turned a gun on himself, after doing that. But it turns out that's not the case. Basically, Tracy was in that mindset of already, because it's like her boyfriend cheated on her. It's like, I'm not going to let someone tell everyone at school or whatever about that, because my boyfriend cheated on with a girl who's a 5 at best. And it's like, Eugene's her friend, and he talked her down and everything, but then he made a move on her, and she's like, whoa, yeah, she thought something was happening between me and you just because there's something between me and my boyfriend. And then she shot herself. I mean, Eugene moved the gun at the last second. That's why she didn't die immediately and just ended up in the condition she did. But then he was like, oh, holy crap. And he tried to literally try to put her brain back in and everything. The mom coming in he got scared and panicked. It's like, I'm going to tell your dad you're doing something to my daughter. And then he attempted to, do the same, but I guess the gun kind of temporarily jammed. And so it left him in the condition he's in rather than killing him. So Eugene technically didn't do anything bad. It's just that I guess everyone in town the question is, because what was wondering through my mind is is it just that Eugene is remembering things wrong? Is he trying to look at things in the best light? Which I don't think that's a possibility, because for one, Eugene was all about no, I don't want the easy way out. I should suffer for what I did. So there's that. Plus, I doubt hell would get it wrong, because it seems like the whole thing is a mental thing anyway. So maybe it's whatever it is that makes you suffer the most, you have to relive that the most. We've only seen one other experience with it, and that's, the Saint Killer is a cowboy. We've only seen his other situation to compare this to. So it's either, the least likely option is either he's remembering it wrong and hell's kind of feeding it to him wrong because he's remembering wrong. And maybe that's the whole thing. Maybe unless you face your actual punishment, maybe it'll keep doing that until you really face the truth. Or maybe, like I said, that's not the case at all. And maybe it's just that everyone assumed Eugene did, and Eugene probably didn't fight people on it, because it's no one's going to believe me, or no one did. He probably told them the truth, but no one believed him. It's no, she rejected you, and then you did that to her. But it's no, she did that to herself. And it's because you also put it Eugene's not in hell voluntarily. It's not he was such a terrible person, he went to hell. He was sent to hell by Jesse, so it's a very different thing, I guess. So that's what I'm curious about, how that whole thing works now. We actually sit there and think about it. It's how did that happen with Eugene? It's not his time to die and go to hell, but maybe with them, it's you got sent here. You must be here for a reason. So it's they just set him up. Because it's kind of interesting, because hell's more like a jail cell, and there's a projection that shows you, make you relive your worst things, except it's kind of on the fritz. And it seems like it might be affecting a whole prison, because the lady comes in and is okay, don't go anywhere. And he goes out, finds out, I don't know if it's his cellmate right right beside him, or at least one more cell down, but it's he's at least in the same cell block as Hitler, which is kind of sad that that's a thing, because it's I can see it, especially when you look at the situation, because it's Eugene didn't do anything. But once again, maybe it's also the fact is, if you feel guilty about something, which then begs the question, did the cowboy, the cowboy felt guilty about not saving his family. Did he actually feel guilty about all the people he killed afterwards? But, for Eugene, it's maybe he blames himself, because he's if I had never made a move on her, she would be all right now. So this is my punishment. It's my own fault. So maybe that's what this is all about. Maybe that is the case. Maybe it's not. Like I said, it was just kind of interesting getting that little peek at hell, because we never really, we saw a little bit of that whole long stretch of hallway with doors and stuff like that. We saw that to a certain extent. Like I said, they're jail cells. Literally got jail numbers on their jumpsuits and everything. And it was kind of interesting getting that little peek at hell. But another part of this episode was the group getting to New Orleans, and Tulip being super against it and everything. Like obviously they're going around like looking for God, and I love that situation of like, are you looking for God? All three of you? It's like, yes, all three of us. And they walk in, it's a dude in a dog suit and a lady holding him with a collar. Someone walks up and it's like a dildo and some stuff. It's like, okay, it's this amount to watch, this amount to play, and it's dollars. It's like, no, we're looking for God, not this. And the person in the suit kind of growls like, and kind of barks too. It's like, and what I love most about it is like Cassie says, okay, start pulling out money. Jesse's like, what the hell are you doing? It's like, no, I'm about to pay the man. It's like, you're such a deviant, Cassidy. I mean, it makes you wonder how would he have really gone through it. I guess he's like, I mean, hell, we're already here. They're offering to us. I mean, might as well. I mean, how much money do you actually have on you, Cassie? It seems like you're broke every time anyway. So, but nonetheless, they did that interesting thing where they zoomed in on the eye beneath the suit and everything. So I'm like, I mean, at least the suit's eye, and it's just kind of you seeing darkness. So I mean, like, I don't know if that was just kind of like or an aesthetic thing they were doing, or was that supposed to represent something like? I mean, is that going to come back or not? Did you see that pop up in the preview? So I don't know if that's just like a one-off thing, but I get the feeling there's probably more to it than that. Just because it's in the previews, but I don't know. Kind of have to see. That just seemed like a one-off thing for at the very least for now. But Tulip's kind of like, oh, I don't feel good, and Jesse's like, what is going on? She's like, nothing. Like nothing's wrong. I'm just not feeling good. So, and you also see kind of a little bit like it seems like because she even calls Jesse out on like, are you mad at me because of the whole us not get married thing? And he's like, we were right. Marriage is stupid. She's like, yeah, good. So, good part of me also looks at it as like. Part of me thinks like, yeah, I think Jesse proposed to her in like a sense of like, oh yeah, it's like, oh, he talked about the fact that you don't have any family, so I'll let me be your family. So I guess for him, it's like, I thought you felt something there, but it's like apparently not. Like, I mean, because that's the question. Because the question is Jesse one of those people who's kind of like, oh, like, he's thought about marriage and would like to get married one day. And so, I mean, because Tulip's always kind of thought was stupid, apparently. So the question is, like, how does Jesse always felt about it? And, and there's also a part of me that's kind of like, I mean, kind of goes along with what Tulip said. It's like, that's kind of a crappy way to kind of propose to her. And it's like, I don't know, like, it almost seems like you're doing it for the wrong reasons. I mean, it seems like you had the right intentions and stuff like that, but it seems like, I don't know, it didn't seem there was no romance behind it. That's at least how I'm feeling about it. I mean, Tulip's main reason for saying no is just because this whole situation, because I think it's like, I guess she kind of feels like she doesn't really deserve to get married to him, especially when she's keeping secrets from him, this whole Victor situation, which she's only elaborated a little bit on. Like, the fact of the matter is, it's like, yeah, I screwed him over, and now I'm back in, like, I'm literally in his backyard. And she keeps talking about the fact that it's something she can't tell Jesse. So is it something she can't tell Jesse because Jesse would go insane? Is it because she knows who Jesse is? Because she referenced it before, like, yeah, there's a side to Jesse that you don't know, Cassie, that a kind of darker side. So was it that, or is she afraid that if Jesse found out whatever the situation is between her and Victor, he would never look at her the same way again? Is that the type of situation? Because, like, I referenced this when I was talking in season 1. It's something that I've heard people talk about, that Tulip's character isn't necessarily how she was in the comic books, in a sense of, like, they skipped over a lot of, like, her character, like, who her character was, like, developing into. Like, who she is now is kind of who she is a little bit later on in the comic books. She's very different at the beginning, as at least that's, like what I was hearing and stuff like that. Once again, I haven't read the comic books, but that's from what I heard. So I'm wondering, is Victor connected to some of that backstory of, like, how Tulip became kind of, like, who she is now? Maybe that's not the case at all. I mean, it seems like, as we saw as a kid, like, Tulip was always kind of a badass. So maybe that kind of doesn't apply in this adaptation, but whatever the case may be. Cassidy wants to help her and everything, and he's going as far as being like, don't treat me like an idiot. I can help you out. She's like, yo, you can't help me. It's like, you're forgetting, like, even though Cassidy's a bumbling idiot, let's not forget, he is a vampire. I think you kind of tend to forget that. But even though he's a bumbling idiot, it's like, the fact of the matter, he's like, I've done so much for you. I've helped dispose of a body of the guy that you killed. Stuff related to this whole situation twice. And also there's the fact this is how Cassidy feels about you too, whether he wants to admit it or not. And he wants, like, he wants to help you and everything too. So, cause you still see it. He's like, yeah, he like your ex-fiance who really loves you and stuff. And so I guess Tulip feels like, after hearing all of that, and then she tries to call Jesse later on in the episode, but I think Tulip is, and I think it's something probably Jesse has a hard time with too. It's like Tulip, probably isn't really good at, saying what's on her mind or saying what's in her heart, because she called him up just like, oh, it's like, what did you call me up for? I don't know, did you have something to say? It's like, did you have something to say? And they kind of walked away pissed from each other. I think it's just Tulip just couldn't bring herself to tell him the truth, or at the very least, like share what her problems are, I guess, because like I said, she just doesn't want him involved in the whole situation. So, I mean, last time we see her is like, she kind of like, it seems like she goes out in the open on purpose because she knows Victor's going to find her one way or another. So it's like, might as well speed this up. And so she's like, just waiting. And then she turns around and those guys are like, yep, tell Victor we found her. Also curious about that whole Dennis situation. The dude who speaks French, and then Cassie's like, oh yeah, he's so funny. Like, yeah, oh yeah, me and my pals were on this big mission and stuff like that. Ooh, very important and stuff. But Dennis kind of doesn't seem like he's interested at all. Even kind of throwing, it looked like it was like some M&Ms that Cassidy gave him. He just tossed them aside. And so obviously there's something there. It's like he's reluctantly helping Cassidy. So immediately, this is just something random that popped in my mind just because of the whole like being a vampire thing. I don't know how vampires work in this series. I know in some series vampires can't have children. That's the whole being a vampire thing kind of nullifies having kids. So part of me was like, could Dennis actually be a kid that Cassidy had a long time ago? But he's always kind of been a deadbeat dad. And so he's saying like, oh, he's a friend, but there's more to that. Or at the very least, like that's someone he's known from the past, being as old as he is. It's not like, oh, this is a recent thing. It's like, no, we have an extended past. Like I said, the whole kid thing, if that turns out to be true, do you know I've not looked anything up into that. It's just like, that was just a random vibe I was just getting. I was like, oh, I mean, it can be interesting, but at the very least, there's something there to the point that Dennis really does not like Cassie. He's just almost, he's like enjoying TV until Cassie walks in the room and he just kind of like, because he even reluctantly let Cassidy stay there. So at least there's something there to the point for him to even let Cassidy and Tulip stay there. Begs the question, there is something at least positive in that department. I mean, and then finally, there's also like the development on Jesse's side of the story. I mean, Jesse's kind of on his own with this whole searching for God situation. Obviously, people laughing at his face every time he's looking for God and stuff like that. They're like, oh, you should know where God is better than anyone else, preacher. Ha 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 ha. Kind of laughing in his face. One dude kind of, the first dude to kind of really do that, Jesse slid a glass into his face. But he met up with that singer, Laura, who got attacked by the dudes in white. And it turns out to be the case, but immediately I saw those white suits, I was like, oh, this connected to the dude from season 1 that, the map that Tulip got. Like, she gave it to that lady, Danny, and she gave it to that dude in the white suit. And I was like, that's a storyline we haven't gone back to. So apparently this is some religious group or whatever kind of fanatics that essentially Laura described them as the type of people that want to take over the world, which is kind of interesting considering later on. I like the twist of finding out like, oh, Laura is actually part of it. Didn't see that coming because I was like, in the moment she drives away, they're going to catch up with her or kill her or something like that, because apparently they're trying to shut up anyone that's like spreading rumors about God having disappeared, that God is missing. Because she was referencing a guy that's like, oh yeah, this guy had told me, he's like, oh yeah, they found his body in a swamp. Most likely her group had something to do with it, but I just like the twist of her actually being one. I was like, I didn't see that coming. I guess I should have, considering the fact is that Jesse ended up showing her Genesis, not really saying its name or really giving too much of a display of it, but he used it once. And I was like, kind of interesting. I was like, kind of interesting just for a regular side character to kind of know that. It's like, oh no, because you're going to play a bigger role in all this. I also appreciate the bartender who sent Jesse to her originally. I can't remember his last name, but it might be Malcolm Barrett. I'm sure I'm probably getting that wrong. At least his last name I'm getting wrong. But most recently, obviously, playing Rufus on Timeless. So that was kind of cool. At first, I thought he was Victor because I was like, there's no way he did. Like, I don't know why. Just in my mind, I'm like, oh, there's no way he's like a small character. I mean, he might be a small character, but I was like, oh, just specific. I was like, no. He's probably like, actually Victor, and this is some whole setup thing. But I was like, no, I doubt Victor's actually set up with the like dudes in white and stuff like that. It turns out that isn't the case. So he seems to be like just some member of this group. And what's also interesting to me is that the fact is it was Laura who described him as like a group that seeks the end of the world type of thing. And it's like, she describes herself as that, but maybe that's because she knows that's what people outside of the group would describe them as, or I don't know. Well, that was just kind of interesting to me. The question is like, what are they all about? What do they want, and why are they keeping like things hush hush about God being missing? Maybe this is obviously this has got to be like connected to the map back in season 1. I mean, because the only person amongst them that really knows about it is Tulip. Because I'm pretty sure she actually saw it before. Danny told her to mind her own business because it's like, it's not important. You were hired to get it, so let's just leave it at that. So, but now they're kind of interested in him. It's like, oh yeah, Jesse. There's definitely something in that. So there's definitely something about Jesse, which is like, how would you know to go to Jesse in the first place? How would you know about there being something about him? I mean, it seems like they have like their connections because there's like files on people. There was Jesse's file, and then on top of his, there was someone named Pig. That's probably going to come up somewhere. Probably a comic book reference that I'm not getting. It's like, oh, they reference Pig. Oh, that's Pig. That's probably what that is. Or might be something that comes up later on. Either way. But it's like, how do they know about Genesis? The only people who could possibly know about Genesis were in Anvil and they all died. But once again, it seems like they have some kind of heavy connection since they have literal files on people. So maybe there's like some government connection with this group. I don't know. They're just really well informed. We did kind of find out possibly the dude from the first season. It seems like his name is Her, but I mean, it might just be pronounced Hair, Star. So I feel like I recognize that actor. I could be completely wrong on this, but isn't that the actor who plays the tall man from 12 Monkeys, the TV show? It might not be, but it just like, to me, I just looking back, I feel like I recognize his face. That might be him, might not be. So, I mean, either way. Same thing for the actress who plays Laura, too, because I feel like I'd seen her before somewhere, too, but maybe that's just my imagination. But it still puzzled me. How do they know about there possibly being something with Jesse? Not unless they've heard the rumors about him or something. Like, you know, it's like, I mean, they haven't really been subtle about their movements and stuff like that. But it's like, they just left Texas in general. It still just blows my mind that you would know anything, you know? So, I don't know. Maybe because I don't know. Maybe they have connections that's kept an eye on anyone from, maybe they were keeping an eye on Tulip and then I don't know. Maybe they keep an eye, maybe that's the thing. Maybe they kept eyes on all religious people because obviously like when Genesis came to earth, like going to preachers and holy men all around, like start exploding bodies, they probably made sure to keep an eye on it because it's like, oh, this is some celestial phenomena. And then like, maybe they've even been able to track it. I don't know. Like, it's just, I'm curious to find out how do they, you know, even know anything is up with Jesse. And along with like, what's up with this Victor and Tulip situation. Like I said, like, I feel like there's a little bit of I said it previously that I think it's somewhat of a property situation. Like she was treated like property and now Victor's all about getting it back. Like once again, it's like, I don't know if that's going to be what they do with her story or not. As well as Eugene's whole situation in hell. I mean, his door is open, so it's like, is there an actual way to literally escape from hell? And what's up with the whole Hitler situation? Is that supposed to be something, is there more to that? Or is that just supposed to represent like, yeah, you see what kind of place Eugene's in because one of his cellmates is literally Hitler. So maybe that's supposed to add context to that, but I don't know. We'll kind of have to wait and see. You know, like I said, a very good episode and, you know, very interesting developments that I'm very interested to see how they develop more. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.